Well, hello there, how is everyone? I hope you're all well on this Super Sunday. So we call it Super Sunday. Super Sunday. And it is super because I'm about to have a Sunday roast dinner. Well, I say about to in about an hour and a half, 2 hours time. And you know me, I love food, as you can tell. Amazing. Just like you, by the way. You're amazing. You look amazing. You are amazing. And you are hugely appreciated for what you guys do in order to build and sustain this community. We have a fantastic community over here. And I'd like to thank some of the community members for reaching out to me with respect of Jennifer Coffindaffer, Jennifer Coffin Dodger, and her comments over on Twitter, or X as it's now known, after she made the claim that I have no credentials, which, yeah, I guess I don't really have credentials. I have a degree in psychology, but it doesn't really help me when it comes to US law enforcement and how that operates over there. So, yeah, I'll give you that one. But she did also say that all I care about is money, and I'm disgusting and the worst of the YouTubers. I should get a badge for that. I should get a medal for that, or a crown even. King of the bad YouTubers, perhaps. Coming from a person who openly supports another content creator who is lying to their subscribers, saying that they are 100% crowdfunded and they need their donations in order to produce the content, all while raking in thousands a month in ad revenue alone. But who am I to judge? Thank you, Jennifer Coffindaffer. I will take you seriously when you don't make comments like this, and that is that the fact that Bryan Kohberger's DNA is on the knife sheath proves that he was inside 1122 King Road. And also when you make your comments, like we showed in a previous video, where you're talking and taking the piss out of eyebrows like a 13-year-old schoolgirl. That's when I'll take you seriously. Anyway, I digress. Time to move on, because this video is a little bit ranty. It's going to be a little bit, I say a little bit ranty, not really ranty, but there is one specific type of person who we see over on this channel, and you know who they are. They're the people who absolutely 100% won't accept that there is a chance that Bryan Kohberger could indeed be innocent. And look, he could indeed be guilty, 100%, but he could indeed be innocent, and he could indeed just be part of a bigger picture, and there could be other people involved. There are certainly people around this case, Steve Gonsalves being one of them, the father of one of the victims, who is quite open to the possibility of him either not being involved or other people being involved. And in the upcoming week, we'll be looking a little bit more closely at who could potentially be the people or person, certainly one male it would appear, that could have been someone who dobbed Bryan Kohberger in, and did they do so to spare their own neck? But look, I want to tackle this one specific type of person because they all have the exact same sort of question throughout their comment. They start in one thing and they go through a series of questions, and it's like they're saying, ha! Answer that then. Answer that. And they start with the phone pings. Like, they'll turn around and say, people can't explain how his phone pings were pinging and he turned his phone off and all this, that and the other. And I'll say this, we don't know 100% whether Bryan Kohberger's phone had been switched off or his phone just simply went dead. And what his phone being switched off during that period of time means is simply that his phone was not reporting to a cell tower, seemingly, around a specific time of the night, on this specific night. Which I would imagine that on the grander scheme of things, there was probably many, many other people in exactly the same position. Granted, when you add a load of the other elements, it does look suspicious, but on its own, it doesn't really mean a great deal. And that certainly wouldn't be able to prove that Bryan Kohberger entered and murdered people inside 1122 King Road. And furthermore, we do not have any proof or anything that has come out officially that backs up any statement being made publicly by the likes of legacy media, dodgy media saying that there are phone pings that ping him in certain places. Now, they will usually pair this comment with the fact that Bryan Kohberger had gone into Moscow, Idaho on around 12 other times as well. And what I will say to that is law enforcement have alluded to the fact that Bryan Kohberger's phone pinged around Moscow, Idaho the day after the crimes had happened, but they do not believe that at this time Bryan Kohberger was in fact in the area, which in that single piece of information goes to show that the phone pings, the phone tower mast data is quite broad in the way in which it gathers information and can be used to prove someone being somewhere or not being somewhere. And what I mean by that is these 12 other times wouldn't simply be able to be supported by phone ping data solely. They would have to have further information, further camera footage showing that he is indeed on camera. And perhaps they've got it, and perhaps that's something that we're going to see. Perhaps on the dates that they assume that he visited or frequented the area of 1122 King Road, they have his car on camera, and that can be compared to the most recent data that we're working with. They will then not only talk about the phone pings, but they will obviously talk about the knife sheath, the knife sheath itself, and they'll turn around and explain how his DNA got on the knife sheath. And what I generally say to these people is, look, what this talks about is the fact that there was DNA on a knife sheath. Now, we could turn around and say the knife sheath could have been planted, and that would kind of go in the realms of tinfoil hat, but what we have to understand is that around the time of these crimes, there was a deal, there still is a deal, between the University of Idaho, Phoenix University, for the acquisition of Phoenix University by the University of Idaho, and it is worth hundreds of millions of pounds. And there would have been an intense amount of pressure placed upon Moscow PD to get a result. And we don't know how far people will go to get results, but we have seen in the past, even with people around this case, that they are willing to go beyond what they should do in order to acquire a conviction, or at least an arrest. And certainly the way in which Bryan Kohberger was arrested went beyond the realms of what you would expect to see in this situation. Like with the car, for instance, if they had DNA and they were working on DNA, why would they have still been pushing the public to search and hunt for a white Hyundai Elantra literally the day before it was released that he had been arrested? You know, the DNA situation, I think, would have trumped the car situation. I don't see why they would have risked probably scaring the person who they felt had done this, when they already technically had and was working on building a DNA tree in the background. I could be wrong. But these seem to be the things that the naysayers will say. You know, the knife sheath is a big one. Of course it is. And the most recent one is talking about the Dickies coveralls, the Michael Myers suit, if you like, and the fact that it would seem that in the Howard Bloom writings, it would say that there was a purchase of a K-bar knife. And what I will say to that is, look, at the end of the day, still we don't know what is 100% accurate, so we do have to take certain things with a pinch of salt. But I would say that if it was proven that Bryan Kohberger had indeed purchased a K-bar knife, and it was indeed a K-bar knife that was used as a weapon in this crime, then that is quite damning. The Dickies coveralls, however, now bearing in mind that this was in the run-up to Christmas, and Bryan Kohberger's father is a heating engineer of sorts, I do believe. Please do, let me know down below if I've got that wrong. I believe he works on air conditioning, so on and so forth. And perhaps Bryan Kohberger had brought them for his dad as a Christmas gift. We know that Bryan Kohberger was leaving the area and going over to his father's to spend Christmas and that period of time with them. So it makes sense that he would have perhaps brought his father, something like that, because these people, these trolls will turn around and say they haven't been able to explain that, but we don't know. You know, we've not been made privy to any recording. I don't think there is any recording, which in itself is a bit odd, but we haven't been made privy of any communication between law enforcement and Bryan Kohberger, so we can't say what he has and what he hasn't done. But look, there are some valid questions. There's some valid things that both sides of the argument hold. You know, there are some questions that Bryan Kohberger will certainly need to be questioned on, and, you know, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that when you put them all together is quite damning. But there are some elements of this case in the background that just don't, you know, they don't tie it up in a neat little bow. They leave things open to questioning, you know, and even though there were so many people over on X, and these comments made that I was talking about at the beginning by Jennifer Coffin Stabber, she ain't killed anyone, I don't think, but she was talking about Dylan Mortensen, and people were sort of backing up Dylan Mortensen, saying, "Oh, people are accusing her. I've never accused her of doing anything." There's a massive difference, and I said this over on Twitter. There's a difference between accusing someone of something and questioning a person's actions or inactions. You know, because when you've got one eyewitness who puts together an account of who they saw and exactly what time they saw them, but you pair that with frozen shock phase, which then questions whether they were indeed compos mentis enough to give that rendition of the night, then, you know, you have to question that. You also have to question why law enforcement haven't dug deeper into why there was this delay. Because at the base level, that is a chargeable offence in Idaho to, you know, the non-report of a crime. And that has not been tackled. So it leaves you again open to interpretation that perhaps she was leveraged on and she was told what she had to say and she became a witness. And maybe the exculpatory evidence of Bethany Funk would lead you to believe that she couldn't have possibly been a witness, because perhaps she didn't come out of her room, she didn't see anyone, and perhaps there was messages after the event that would say that she hadn't seen anyone. There wasn't a witness at all. We have been sort of told by people who we don't really know 100% whether they can trust, but there was a Snapchat thread of people talking. There was no mention of a witness in that. But again, we don't know if that's trustworthy or not. We don't really know what is trustworthy and what isn't. But point being, question, don't accuse. We are able, and we have the right to question things, talk about things, discuss things. And that's my tuppence worth. But anyway, like I say, I've got a Sunday dinner that is being made for me by the absolute brilliant Mrs. Harsh. Without Mrs. Harsh, there would be no Mr. Harsh. She is amazing, just like you guys, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your weekend. So without further ado, I'm off to prepare myself, get my Thanksgiving pants on, so I've got extra room. Go and enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll catch you all in the next one.